This meeting is being recorded.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webinar this morning. My name is Jim Flynn from Great Place to Work. We're very happy that you can join us and looking forward to getting into our discussion on employer branding. And just as you're all coming in the door there, if you get a chance, if you wouldn't mind popping in the chat that you can see the screen and that you can hear everything and all the technology is working okay, that'd be really helpful. And saying hello to you this morning from Kilkenny, which is quite chilly down here, as it is quite around the country, and hopefully nobody's snowed in or anything like that. So it's great to have you on board. Great to welcome Kevin here and Brian, who's going to be joining us later. Just before we get going, I do want to mention, of course, that it is International Women's Day, and a shout out to all the women colleagues and women in our lives and so on and so forth. And it was with great pleasure yesterday that Great Place to Work got to celebrate some of the great work that various organizations are doing in terms of making their workplaces specifically better for women. And we got a great opportunity to celebrate that in the Stella Cinema in Dublin at a great event, and on into the Glass magazine, and we have a report and so on and so forth that it'd be great if you get an opportunity to have a look at. Some very useful content in there. Here's some photographs from the event yesterday, which went down very, very well. I have to say, and people really enjoyed it. And there's some interesting statistics here. There was over 30 organizations celebrated as best workplaces for women. We can see specifically some really important items. This is our 5th year running Great Place to Work for women, and we're just really delighted to be able to shine a light on all of that. And that leads us kind of very nicely into some of the discussion that we're going to have today with our case study, which is on Statkraft. And one of the ladies who we got to highlight yesterday and will both in our report and in the Glass magazine is, of course, Tina from Statkraft. And there's a full interview of her there. I can show you a little bit of a sneak preview here.
As a leader, as a woman, as a mother, as a wife, showing them how I lead is really, really important. The sky's the limit. You have to just roll with it. The world's my oyster. I can do whatever I want. There's nothing being holding me back. Or can you take on the challenge? And that's where I want to work and where I'm really looking for. That is where I work.
I have a voice that can affect change.
And I'm really proud of you. You did really well.
Women are great at supporting women. My MD will always say, no matter what's going on inside the office, no matter what trench we're in, it'll always be Tina, it's family first. So do what you got to do. A colleague of mine that went through mental health issues, and this person stood up and told all her colleagues in one room about her mental health challenges, what she went through, and the support that she got from the organisation. I thought, wow, we have created an environment where this person can stand up in front of all of her colleagues, over 100 people, and tell them about her mental health challenges.
So that report is available today for you to download. Congratulations to all of the organizations that were listed as best workplaces for women. And Kevin, I'd like to introduce you into the conversation. Looking forward to getting to discuss the whole Statkraft story. So you're coming to us from whereabouts exactly?
So yeah, we're based in Cork. We have an office now of a fast-growing office. We're just gone over 100 people in the last month. So working out of Cork with a really large amount of activity across the country. So Statkraft, I guess, is ultimately a large renewable energy company. We're the largest producer of renewable energy in Europe. A lot of that comes from our hydropower, which is, I guess, the foundation of the business in Statkraft. A lot of hydropower projects in Norway, Sweden, and other European markets. But Statkraft also is one of the fastest growing developers of onshore wind, solar, offshore wind, batteries, grid services projects throughout Europe as well. So the Irish business was set up in October 2018, and we now have over, as I say, over 100 people working on projects throughout the country.
And tell us about yourself, Kevin. You lead the Irish and the UK business.
Yeah, so I head up, I'm the country manager for Ireland and the same for UK. And it's a really exciting kind of group of activities that we have. We're, as I say, we're doing the renewable projects, but also we do things like EV charging, trading of renewable power, and developing new technologies like hydrogen to use that renewable power as well. So my background is as a developer of renewables for over 20 years now. So I know I look way younger than that, Jim. I know you were commenting on that already, but actually, no, I'm developing renewables for over 20 years, and yeah, it's a really exciting stage, I guess, for that sector. It's gone from being maybe a niche sector 20 years ago, where at one of our conferences we might turn up and it'll be a few people in woolly jumpers talking about trying to develop these new technologies, to today, which is a very large industry. And in Ireland alone, there's probably well over 5,000 or 6,000 people working specifically in that sector, and a huge amount of investment being put into the sector in Ireland.
So when you were 12, you started off becoming an engineer in UCC in a woolly jumper, and
a child prodigy, yeah.
Yeah.
So slightly different route timing wise, but yeah, I studied engineering UCC, and was really lucky that there was some very forward-looking, pioneering lecturers and professors in the Civil Environmental Engineering department in UCC. So I was able to do a master's, research master's in renewable energy there, and that really launched a career for me. And there's so many more people have come from that stable now that are really well-known people in the sector and leading a lot of companies and businesses in the renewable sector. So very proud of the background in that alma mater.
How important is the renewable sector for Ireland, Kevin? And what potential does it have?
Yeah, it's already actually making a really meaningful contribution, and I think we probably maybe don't communicate it well enough as an industry. It's something I've definitely learned in the last few years, and this will be something we touch on in our employer branding as well. But as an industry, we need to explain what we've achieved and what that potential is. So already 40% of all of our electricity in Ireland comes from renewable energy, mainly wind energy, but also some solar has come on recently, and some small amount of hydro as well. So, you know, I think last Christmas Day, just to give you an understanding of it, at one stage, I think up to 75% of the electricity that we were using to heat or cook our turkeys and get the Christmas dinner ready was coming from wind power. So at any one time, we can get 75% of all our electricity in Ireland coming from renewables. And then over the whole year, 40% of that demand came from renewable generated power. And that has really good benefits for Ireland. First of all, it saved us last year roughly about €2 billion in avoided cost of having to buy gas and buy gas generation. It makes us more secure. So energy security was something that maybe wasn't really high on people's minds in Ireland until the Ukraine war and the increasing electricity and energy prices. But, you know, Ireland actually had the worst position in Europe from an energy security perspective. We're on the end of a pipe that I guess is flowing from Russia through Europe, through the UK, and our gas, pretty much all of it bar Corrib, comes from two interconnection gas pipes from Scotland. So, you know, we really are in a precarious position when it comes to our energy security. So by being able to now source 40% of our electricity from renewables already, that saves us money, as I say, and gives us security, and also makes a significant contribution to us reducing our emissions, which is key in tackling climate change. So that's what it's done already. And then the potential is that by 2030, the government target is that 80% of all of our electricity will come from renewables, which is a phenomenal number because in Ireland, we're an island nation and we have limited connection to the UK and European grid. So generating that amount is world leading. So we actually are a world leader in renewable development, despite maybe sometimes we can be a little bit hard on ourselves as a country. But yeah, we are a world leader and are going to continue to be a world leader in terms of the deployment of the amount of renewables relative to our size of our grid, our electricity grid. So very, very exciting situation to be kind of involved in that sector at the moment.
So as we get into telling the employer branding story, this, like the purpose, the contribution, the importance across both climate and security and economics, you know, can sort of really ties into that employer branding story, which we can talk about later. But you've gotten better at telling that story.
Yeah, I think so, and it was necessary for my company and for us as an industry to share this information and spread that story. But actually, it also is really, really critical in terms of if we want to achieve those great targets, and Statkraft is one of the leading players that will be involved in trying to achieve those targets in Ireland, we need a really strong team and we need more and more people to join us. So, you know, that employer branding piece is actually one and the same of that overall messaging we need to do to the general public, to the political and policymakers. So it's interesting how it's all come together in the last few years.
So there's an importance in terms of the consistency of the story to the various, you know, to the various audiences, which are important for the success of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, to be honest, if you want to achieve that consistency and you want your brand to stand the test of time and not maybe fade away or lose its relevance, there's very much, I believe, and this is something Statkraft's overall corporate team are very much focused on, is a kind of inside out approach. So, you know, we need to believe it, we need to live it, we need to walk the walk as a company with our team. And you know, the Great Places to Work award, both the one that we got awarded for the small companies category, but also the certification yesterday as one of the best places to work for women. Those are really important actually in us being able to show we're walking that walk both internally and externally when we're looking for new talent.
Okay, so let's get deeper into that. Fernanda's just going to launch a poll there now, because we got a lot of industries and a lot of different industries involved, you know, here today, I suppose, Kevin, and maybe not all of them would have such a clear story to tell in terms of the purpose and the contribution. But I mean, it sounds like you're very, very clear on that. I mean, what would you say to an organization who's still trying to develop that and who's trying to think about, you know, where that purpose fits in terms of importance?
Yeah, you know, I guess today my story and the purpose sounds very clear and obvious and straightforward, but you know, I've been working in this sector, as I said earlier, for a long time, and we had an extremely difficult challenge for the last 10 or 15 years to get our story communicated and to get people to understand it. I would say we've obviously had external factors which have brought it more front and center, but actually we've had to work hard for a long time, I would say, to be able to streamline that story and make it relevant and interesting and understandable. And I think that's something that we've had to work very hard on. We probably in the past had maybe too confusing a set of messages and too wide a kind of a mission statement on what we were doing. So what's very much happened in the last few years is that focusing on, okay, how is this relevant to the public? how is this relevant to people who may be wanting to work with us? And, you know, I think that messaging is really important. But to be honest, it's still all about that inside out approach. If your organization and your team doesn't believe it and we are not living it, I think that branding and that getting your message out there and that story can become very difficult to be able to tell consistently.
Okay, so look, I mean, just on the poll there, we can see 89% of people who are on today are finding it either difficult or very challenging to attract the right talent for open positions, right? So we're, you know, so this story is really important and very relevant to people who are listening today. So let's just go back in time a little bit. You were working for this company, Statkraft took them over in 2018. What happened, Kevin? How did you come to hear about Statkraft, and what was the story? Let's track it through time.
Yeah. So the company that we were working in before was called Element Power, and that was an international renewable energy developer. But the Irish management team consisted of Tim Cowig, Peter Hart, and myself, and we were people who, you know, were working in the renewable sector for quite a long time. But in 2010, we established Element Power Ireland, and we grew a really good business over the following 8 years. I would be honest, Statkraft, at the start of 2018, Statkraft was something that I didn't know a lot about. It was a company and a brand I didn't really know about, other than that it was kind of an obscure utility business in Norway. So, you know, when Statkraft bought Element Power in October 2018, we were starting from scratch in terms of an employer brand. It was not that well known a name. As I say, I didn't even know it myself, and I'm in the sector. So it was interesting to, I suppose, approach it with a clean slate in terms of, well, how are we going to grow our name in Ireland? But we had a lot of good fundamentals. I mean, you know, it was a Norwegian state-owned company, very strong investment capability, balance sheet, very strong history of delivering large renewable projects and being involved in a lot of markets globally. So that absolutely helped. But at the same time, you know, it took quite a bit of work to get from no one knowing who the company was to getting it more well known in the sector. And you know, I think, I mean, that you have to be credible, you have to be relevant. I think you have to sell the direction you want to go as well. I guess you call it aspirational. And you know, I think that was one of the things that I personally, with the management team in Ireland, were very clear on. There was quite a few companies entering the Irish sector in renewables over those years, but we were very clear. We were not going to talk about just general theoretical things. We weren't going to maybe just talk about all these great plans without being able to back it up and actually show we're actually doing things. So for us, we based a lot of our public communications, industry communications around the projects and the activities we were doing. So we were walking the walk, as I'd like to say. So I think that was really helpful in us building that name, that brand in the sector. So, you know, we weren't flooding the market with a kind of a publicity campaign. We weren't trying to do, you know, high profile advertising campaigns. The focus was more on, well, this is what we're doing, and here's the latest project we're doing, and then linking the aspirational bit of saying, well, you know, here's one of these projects now, and we can do so much more, but you know, Ireland needs to do X, Y, Z to enable that to happen. one of the big things was that we wanted the public to understand their role, because really they're the energy citizen. And that was really important for us to work on that. So very much something concrete to communicate about was what I felt led to us getting more attention and being able to be seen as a market leader in our sector.
And of course, as we get into it, in terms of your Great Place to Work journey, a key statements that there are, which have the highest correlation with people believe it's a great place to work, is management delivers on its promises and management's actions match their words. And, you know, so you leading out with this, you know, this authentic brand piece where you were backing up what was happening with real activity and able to point to real evidence was a very, very important part of that journey.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And, you know, just to give the context again, we were a company of about 30 to 40 people in Ireland when we were in Element Power. And we, as the management, we were able to work like a small team and really, you know, that team spirit and this all in it together approach and feeling and culture was easier and easy in a way to do, because myself, Tim and Peter passionately believed we were doing the right thing, something that was really needed, and the people around us did that as well. But we've grown, as I say, quite a bit the last few years, and it's a far bigger business. And it's absolutely been something that I've learned and being amazed actually by Statkraft when I first came into it. You know, the CEO, corporate management really do want this one organization, one team culture, and we work really hard on it, and it is very challenging. So, you know, again, Jim, sometimes I might come across as painting a picture that everything is fantastic and rosy. I do believe we're in a good place, but it is very challenging. I mean, Statkraft, if I look at it in my role where I sit on the European management team, we're in 14 different countries. And it's very hard to keep that connection between management and 14 different countries. So that requires a lot of work. And I think, again, it's if the management don't intentionally go about communicating that message and engaging with the different parts of the business and engaging with their teams directly, then that will fall away very fast. So yes, definitely it's been impressive in Statkraft in terms of seeing that level of willingness for management to engage and be part of the team. But to anyone listening here who wants to kind of create that culture, it takes a lot of work and a lot of I would say maybe a bad expression, but ground hurling is required. You do need to really get out and engage with people and create that openness. So it you know, it can be in a formal way where you do town halls, where you do visits to different parts of the business. But actually, a lot of the time, what I find really good in terms of creating that spirit is actually just to talk with people, you know, just one-on-ones, have those coffee cup discussions in the canteens in the various countries that we're involved in, have those direct engagements through our internal social media platforms. And, you know, I would say also to be open and honest with people and show that, you know, we as a management have our flaws, have things we're not clear or certain on. And, you know, one of the best things I find is talking to the hundreds of more intelligent people in our organization who really actually are the ones that give the management the guidance as to what's the right direction we should go as a company.
Yeah, and Kevin, look, delighted to see some questions coming in. Thanks very much to Gemma there, and I think you've just actually answered a lot of her question there in terms of how you laid that out. Please look, no more references to hurling, because a Corkman living Kilkenny, I just won't be able to cope with it, right? And I won't be able to go out there this afternoon. So So as we get on, okay. So again, just to go back to kind of 2019, then you have this fantastic opportunity with this huge company taking over with fantastic resources across a whole number, but it brings its own problems. You grow from, you're starting to think about going from 40 to a much bigger organization, getting much more difficult to communicate across borders, and getting further removed, and great growth opportunities, but great challenges sort of came with that. And at some point then, Statkraft Ireland reached out to Great Place to Work.
Yeah, we knew the direction we wanted to go, and we knew it required a lot of growth in the size of the team, and we were seeing the challenge of hiring people. As your poll said at the start, it's very challenging, and that was something we were very conscious of. And I think our HR team, both at the corporate level, who's looking at this problem on a more global basis, and then within the country team, we're like, well, okay, how can we communicate the benefits of working with Statkraft? As I say, I was really impressed myself when I came into this organization. So the HR team, shout out to Kate Keller and Christina Fox on bringing into our management team in one of our weekly updates that the Great Place to Work opportunity would be a way of us showing to people externally the benefits of working in Statkraft.
Okay, so I'm just going to pop over to Brian there for a moment, who's going to just kind of pick up on that communication from our point of view and what happened then. So Brian, over to you. What happened when Statkraft engaged?
Thanks, Jim. Hi, Kevin. Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, I suppose at this stage, in the beginning, when we're talking to organizations, it's very much a case of meeting them where they're at and understand better what are the things that they're focused on, what might be the challenges for them. So certainly with Statkraft, as Kevin has touched on there, it was around talent, and often it's, in terms of talent, it's retention first of your best people, and also attracting the top or best fit that's in the market. And then in terms of competitive edge, around the opportunity to be recognized and certified as a great place to work, an employer of choice, and using that to leverage the employer branding message in the market and get the company name out there, but importantly, the employer brand as well. Other areas that organizations look at is, through the survey data, is to understand how well are their people aligned to the vision and the mission and the strategy of the organization, so that they are actually in place and capable to deliver on the plan for the organization that is set out. And then also the opportunity to access our range of benchmarks to action plan out of the survey and out of the survey data. So for some organizations, it's all of these things. For some organizations, it's one or two, and that's where we work on that in the beginning. In terms of the process, this is really simple. So we have an employee experience survey with a range of statements that capture key areas across the business. Great Place to Work launch that to all your employees, directly to them, to provide confidentiality and anonymity. We also have a company brief, and this is where the organization shares with us the profile information they want to use when they do achieve certification as such. So it's a really simple, light process. And then in terms of actually being certified, so certified is a standard, and that standard is a score of 65%. So of the people who respond, once you score 65%, you are certified as a great place to work, and that triggers automatically. So you're automatically certified for a period of 12 months, and it's valid for that 12-month period. And we help you then through the company brief document that I mentioned there, to leverage your employer brand in the market, and to use that and to celebrate that as much as we possibly can. And finally, once you're certified, then this gives you access to and the other best workplaces recognitions. Today, as you said, best workplace for women, great celebration of that. And the next one up then is best workplace in tech, which will be celebrated in May. So this really just gives a quick overview in terms of, organizations coming in, understanding what's important to them. And then once you've achieved certified, we're working on, along with organizations then, through the data, through the action planning with the senior team and across the organization to support you. And that's kind of it, Jim.
Great. Thanks very much, Brian. And if somebody reach out afterwards, you get to talk to Brian. So Kevin, so this was brought to you, and what happened next?
Yeah, so first of all, I have to be honest, I was a little bit skeptical of it, Jim and Brian, sorry. Just because it was something, it was a service you were looking for, and that was my initial reaction. But I mean, I think what changed that reaction very quickly was that engagement, that surveying, auditing, that process that Brian explained there. I think that was genuine. I could see then that, well, no, this is a real test of the company. I guess we're lucky in Statkraft in terms of we do pulse surveys on a fairly regular basis. So, I think that was one of the things that made us attracted to doing something like Great Places to Work, was we knew we had this positive team and that people were feeling like it was a great place to work. So once we saw the way you went about doing that assessment through the Great Place to Work process, straight away, I to me it was credible, and I was very positive about it. But it benefited in different ways to what we set out for. We set out that it would be an external thing, but it was actually equally as powerful internally. I think it opened up something in our team's minds about, oh wow, everyone is now seeing we are a great place to work. And it really triggered something in the internal team, pride, an awareness of the benefits that people were getting, a sense of, even further sense of direction that we were going in was the right direction. So actually the internal benefit was something I hadn't expected at all, and is probably almost nearly as important, if not more important, to me as the benefit that we got from doing the Great Places to Work, because it leads back to then my point earlier on about, well, if you want to develop an employer brand, you have to be inside out. And if you don't believe it and walk the walk in your own business, well, your employer brand is going to fall down, and quite quickly externally as well. So for me, that was really, really a huge positive upside from the process. But also, obviously, externally, it has helped. And in general, what we're seeing in our interviews is that up to half the people that do interviews to us, when we ask them about our company, they speak about Great Places to Work as one of the first things they say after wanting to work in the renewables sector. So, it definitely has raised that profile and really helped with us being able to grow fast and secure more people to work in our organization. And we've done quite a bit of work in terms of just surveying what matters to people. And yes, working in the renewable sector matters, working on climate change matters, but actually the survey showed an awful lot of the things that are applicable to all organizations, all industries, were more important still. So, I probably, when we started doing this survey work in Statkraft, I would have expected that, well, we're saving the world. Sorry, that sounds a little bit arrogant, but there is that feeling amongst what we're doing because of just the issues with climate change and being a fully renewable energy company definitely makes us feel like we're doing something that has an impact. But actually, when we looked at the surveys, things like work-life balance, career progression, flexible working environment, family-friendly working environment, a positive place for diversity, those things actually were really important still, and we're actually scoring higher than, yes, you're a renewable energy company. So, I think what Great Places to Work did was, I think it opened up maybe, and this is something we really felt we had to do with our hiring process, was open up people who weren't in the renewable sector and who weren't necessarily looking at the renewable sector as somewhere they wanted to work. But by us having this higher profile through the certification, you know, we were seeing other people who weren't naturally in our sector or didn't know about us saying, oh, well, you know, you obviously are a good place or great place to work. And it just made that extra connection and opened up that pool of people who would look at our advertisements for roles.
So just to recap there again, Kevin, you start off with let's say the purpose and the importance and all of that, then do the inside out piece in terms of delivering on the brand promise, then raising the profile by gathering the data and getting the recognition, then a broader piece in terms of how that drives internal pride. And then in turn, the other piece around reaching beyond your industry then for talent. So opening up the talent pool still further to make sure that you're attracting beyond the people who would immediately think of the industry.
Exactly. And that last one was really important for us, Jim. And, you know, as I say, that's why that kind of global recognition that something like a Great Places to Work certification gives you is what was very important for us.
And tell me, Kevin, how is this, because you're part of the wider Statkraft family, what impact has it had, you know, and across those sort of 14 countries? Like, what difference does it make to the Irish operation in that broader scheme of things?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's something that the other countries are now looking at actually and saying, well, we should do Great Place to Work as well, because as I say, our internal surveys are showing that in general, we have a very strong positive working environment. So I think my colleagues in other markets are seeing that benefit. So that's having a knock-on effect. But, you know, I think also it gives that confidence to the Irish-based team that their interactions with other parts of the business, whether it's the corporate division or other countries, that you know, we bring a lot to the table. And again, it's back to that maybe surprise for me that actually this process and going through the process and getting certified actually empowers your own people in your team. And as I say, that surprised me, but is definitely a brilliant upside to doing this process.
I mean, we spoke about this before, Kevin, like across organizations, Ireland has a wonderful pipeline to feed into and often does very, very well in senior positions in international. We punch above our weight, don't we? Yeah,
absolutely. And yeah, we've apologies to anyone who's on this webinar that doesn't have the green jersey on, but yeah, look, the renewable sector is a really fast growing sector internationally. And I'm always amazed that I go into meeting rooms in different parts of the world and there's someone there from Ireland who's in quite a senior position. And, you know, I think our approach to the way we work with people, our ability to be good communicators, to read the room, to be a conciliator when needed, but also to be quite brave and willing to lead and say what needs to be said, maybe when it's not the easiest. I think those type of attributes stand out a lot when I look at international business, and you know, when I look at internally, even I see a lot of my colleagues in the Irish team who've been working with me for years. They're now at quite senior levels within the Statkraft organization and working across the European platform, not just in Ireland. So yeah, I think that those kind of characteristics I mentioned there enable the Irish workforce to actually have quite a strong appeal to companies working at an international level. And, you know, as you say, we punch above our weight, I would say, relative to the size of the workforce.
So I have two questions for you, Kevin. One which I've been hoping to ask is about attrition, because obviously, you know, attraction is sort of one piece in terms of building the employer brand, but if we have a leaky bucket, then that's a problem as well. And the second question, which came in from one of the attendees there, is, you know, how much effort did it take you to complete this process internally, and that, you know, did it throw up many challenges for you, sort of time wise and so on. So whichever order you want, and we're also going to launch a poll there, just to ask people about this piece around attrition.
I think on the attrition piece, it goes back to the importance of that inside out approach. And you know, it's a kind of a full life cycle thing. It's not just enough to hire really good people. you have to ensure that they continue to be coming to work and feeling part of something that they are enthusiastic about and driven to perform and to achieve what their role requires. So for me, it's back to that, always looking at the engagement and ensuring that there's a lot of focus on where the issues are for people. You know, whether that be that work-life balance, that flexible working, any of those areas. And maybe that takes me to the question around the process and doing it for the first time, and was there a lot of work involved in it? I would say that, first of all, naturally there may be a little bit of hesitation and say, well, whoa, what if this doesn't work out? But for me, actually, it's the process is the important piece. It's what you're doing here is not that you're just doing a process to see, can you get certified and get a brand and be able to get a profile from that. What you're actually doing is you're trying to talk to your staff, and you're trying to say, tell me where the issues are. Tell me what the good things are. Tell me what the not so good things are. And I think that's actually really linked with the attrition piece, is that you do that testing of your company. And, you know, obviously I mentioned earlier about the importance of management engaging with staff, but that's vital. But, you know, it's not always the case that someone is going to tell you over the cup of coffee in the canteen that I'm really sick of what you're doing as a manager, or, you know. So by doing this process, you're allowing people to have a voice in a very clear way where they can say what they want. And I admit that was a little bit scary at the start. I think I would say to people listening in on this, I'd say embrace that. You will learn far more, and in the long run, you'll come up with a lot better strategy with retaining your staff and attracting more by doing this type of analysis and finding out the true feelings of your team. So yeah, it's very much linked, I would say.
I mean, you've opened up a number of anonymous feedback channels, and I know in chatting to you before that in town halls you use Slido, for example, and this, you know, the Great Place to Work survey is another way of getting that sort of, you know, that no holds barred sort of feedback.
Yeah, and I will be honest, that probably wouldn't have been my style 10 years ago or in the past. But actually, by being brave, open, honest, and encouraging that feedback in a way that people can give it, I think it really opens things up, you know. And sometimes at town hall, as you say, we use Slido and it's anonymous questions, and it's very easy to put in, you know, some difficult comments, questions, statements. But even if that does happen, what I find is that, well, you know where there's an issue. But also I think you see amongst your team that people say, okay, well, you know, that particular issue is now known everywhere in this organization, and management are being honest. And sometimes I have to say, there's not much I can do about that, or look, let me try and take it away, but it is going to take some time to to try and deal with this, or some things it could say, look, as a company, we cannot do certain things. And then you explain why. So that openness and transparency and honesty, I think is really important. And it's something, you know, I feel I've learned from the Statkraft company in terms of that approach they take, and something that I believe is very important in what we do in our Irish business.
So you got to number one on our best workplaces list. Have you arrived, Kevin?
Yeah, for maybe an hour at the awards night in Dublin, I felt like we'd arrived. But yeah, then the next thing was the classic thing of feeling, well, oh, wow, well, we need to back this up. And we need to continue to work in this area just as hard. And in a way, by getting that award, it probably puts an extra bit of pressure on us. And, you know, look, whether you get that kind of recognition with that award or not, I can say, last year, when we got that certification for the first time, all those benefits that I spoke about there came from that. Okay. This year is fantastic to get the award. I'm very, very proud that our team felt and gave that feedback, because that's the team speaking. It's not management or HR or our comms team selling a great story to the Great Place to Work team. No, it's actually what our team have said, which is something I'm really, really proud of. But actually, you know, for me, I feel there's just as much pressure today as there was before we got that award, in terms of continuing to focus on both our own team and building and continuing to build that really good culture there, and to attract more people, because we actually have to grow quite a bit in the next few years again. So I as I say, maybe for a few minutes enjoyed the moment, but no, it's a continuous journey. You're on that life cycle all the time. You want people initially to be aware of you, to be attracted to looking for a job and being recruited for you, but then there's the retention and development piece, and there's the commitment piece. You know, you want people feeling like, I give my best. I want to give my best to this company. And, you know, there's the engagement piece where they tell everyone that Statkraft is great, and it's our own employees telling people that Statkraft is great is really important. So yeah, it's an ongoing journey, Jim.
And tell me, a couple of questions coming in there as well, Kevin, which I'm sort of keeping an eye on. I mean, when you lead out with this brand talent sort of story, do you lead with the purpose of the company, or do you lead with the culture of the company as being the thing that's most effective in attracting the right talent?
Yeah, I think it's made up of all of it, to be honest, Jim. I don't think one is more important than the other, because you're trying to talk to, you know, a whole range of different people. So, you know, what might be important for some isn't for others. And as I say, that survey work we did was showing actually that the renewable brand is really great, but it's not actually what makes that final decision for people. I think it's for me, it's the credible piece, the kind of the relevance, and that importance of showing that we're just a good employer and there's a good culture there, and that's something that's just as important. So I would say it's all those items together rather than having one selling point.
And in terms of the ongoing growth, what are you sort of paying attention? What do you see coming down the tracks for Statkraft? Because you've gone from leading a company of 40 to leading the Irish and the UK business. I mean, if I wanted some FaceTime with Kevin going forward, I'm going to have to get in line, aren't I?
Yeah, I think it can be challenging, but it you know what, like I said earlier, getting out and about and mixing with people is really important, and it's gone from the maybe being working with people directly every day to now less frequent interactions. But that's where your town halls and your open and honest approach in those forums becomes even more important, because you know, when you're in those forums, if you're speaking honestly and openly, it's the same as the one-to-one conversation. So I think that that's a really important lesson I'm learning, is that as the company grows and the numbers and the activities increase, you need to find other ways of creating that one-to-one engagement. And we have a very vibrant internal social media platform, or workplace platform. So very, very important that that's something that everyone participates in. And as I say, we like to do our group gatherings and our town halls, and you know that whether you're a small company with a limited budget or a larger company with a bigger budget, do not underestimate the benefit of having those times together. And you know, it doesn't have to be a intense 6 hours locked in a conference center in a hotel where you have a eureka moment. Actually, it's far more important just to get to know each other, and kind of create that good bond between your team. The technical or the strategic stuff will flow from that. So you know, that's the challenge of growing. But I think, you know, there are ways of consistently keeping that small team and one company culture, even as you grow to be a bigger organization.
So Kevin, let's think about sort of what the key points are that we've covered. You know, so again, that piece about purpose and locking people into that purpose, but that's not enough. It needs to be backed up by substance and evidence, and need to be able to sort of communicate that. Then there's a broad range of things that are important to people, and you sort of measured and addressed those in terms of both attraction and retention. You've opened several communication channels, some of them anonymous, so that people could give you sort of real feedback. At times you've got to deliver some pretty tough messages in all of that as well, because you can't address everything that people are saying to you, and that's just not realistic, but it's important to be clear. Anything else that I've missed there that you'd see that's really important to obviously, you know, in terms of getting out there, telling the story, communicating that through authenticated channels and so on. Is there anything else that I'm missing here that you would say would apply across industries? And if I was in a hotel somewhere, or if I was in a small business, or if I was in a large business, is important in telling the employer brand story?
Yeah, I think you summarized it very well. Maybe the thing that's maybe just to add to that as a final point is, I think as a manager and a leader, you do have to have that passion for what you're doing, and it doesn't have to be renewable energy or something tackling climate change. Whatever you're in as a leader and a manager, I think you have to have a strong interest and passion for it. And maybe passion is too strong a word, but whatever job you're in, if you have that connection with it and you have a real passion to do it, then that will go throughout your organization. And for me, that's really important, that I feel that all the time, and that I communicate that, and that we as a team develop that culture amongst all of us.
Well, Kevin, I see you breathing in here on the left-hand side of this photograph, which is great, and you're looking really well there. But look, congratulations in terms of being a best workplace, and the best workplace. And thank you so much for joining us, being so generous with your time, and thanks to the rest of the Statkraft team in terms of their engagement with us. Also, thanks to all my Great Place to Work colleagues who helped put all of this together today. We, as I say, coming off of a great couple of days here, celebrating best workplaces for women. You know, yesterday and into today. So looking at all that. Tomorrow we will be at the Talent Summit. So looking forward to seeing any of you there who will be around if you want to approach us in terms of a chat. I have to say, personally, I've really enjoyed going through the feedback with Statkraft, and the way that the leadership team engage with the results and how they think seriously about that, and kind of prod and poke and test at them. So I'm very, very thankful to all of you in that regard. And thanks to all of you who've joined us today. If there are any questions, we look forward to doing that. We're going to pop into the chat a little video there, which you can have a look at, which if there's any outstanding questions on how the process works that you'd like to have a look at, just come from Marina there. And if you click onto that before we close, you'll be able to see a 3-minute video on explaining certification and how that process works. And we can just give you the highlights of how that works. But it's great to hear about a worked example. And I'm looking forward to seeing the great success for Statkraft going forward, because it's making such a positive contribution to the world and to the country, and very importantly to Cork.
Very important.
So, and Kevin, happy wish you every success in the UK as well. And delighted to see that you've got that position. It's terribly well deserved. So thank you so much for that.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye.